always start them away this way. And here we go again, deliciously motivated mindset.
And you always start it. So
I do.
Welcome, listeners. Here we are again. I'd rather sit back and let you start it.
You're sweet. You're awesome. So listeners, we're here to talk today about spirituality as a way of life. And at the end, I know I like this. This is an area that I could talk about lots, and I really look forward to hearing what you have to say. But before we start getting into our conversation, well, what Deb and I would love you to do is to just take a deep breath, be in this moment, and on a scale of 0 to 10, just make note of where you are. Say 10 is being sort of frantic or anxious or want to get out of this space, and 0 is feeling completely calm in the moment. Just so, where are you? 0 to 10, Deb? Where would you say
I'm
you
actually probably 3 right now, which is probably a 3. I would say pretty poised and centered. Definitely not a 0. Thinking of all the things we've just talked about beforehand now that my list has grown. But no, I'd possibly say a 3 with energy where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
What about you? Where are you?
I would say about a 2. So I'm kind of similar to you. Like you said, we just added to both of our to-do lists. So.
Look out to our assistants.
but I'm definitely I thoroughly enjoy our time together and just getting to inspire and influence in some way to help people take better charge of their life. I think that's kind of the intent of our deliciously motivated mindset pieces here.
Definitely, and spread it with spread our service of knowledge with ease, and for people to receive it with ease.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of why we just thought it'd be a lovely idea for you to just sort of check in and make a wee mental note of where are you at, and then join with us as we kind of go into this idea of spirituality as a way of life. And it's something that spirituality is my way of life. I do walk my talk. Everything that I say to people and suggest to people as far as gaining perspective or looking at why is this situation coming up or why is it bothering me, for instance, then I'm going to sit and pause and look inside. To me, that's the key piece.
So can I just stop you and just go, what is spirituality? To as brief as you can possibly say, because when I first got into my work 13 years ago, I believe spirituality was praying to a god.
Well, I'm glad you said that.
Yes. And so then people talk spirituality. I'm like, well, I didn't know you prayed to a god. And what does a god look like? And then it brought it even more. But the more now, 13 years later, I actually have a different perception of that. But how would you explain? Now I know this could be an hour on its own. How can you explain spirituality as simple
and concise as possible?
As you could.
So it's interesting that you say that, because your definition of that, saying spirituality is praying to a god, to me that's religion, and I am not religious. I don't think I ever have been. To me, spirituality is an acknowledgement of a power greater than me, and I do not believe in any specific label. For some, I might call it God, but I know that God, the name God, makes some people cringe, particularly if they've come from a really indoctrined religious background. So, but it can be universe, source, Yahweh, all that is divinity, the divine source. That kind of energy. And so to me, spirituality is a recognition and an acknowledgement that is what's flowing through me in every moment and in every experience. So life is spiritual. We are spiritual beings having this physical experience, but even the physical experience is part of the spectrum of the spiritual experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the physical body links all the parts together to have that spiritual
That's right.
being or core or whatever it is. I call God, and it's come from Dr. John DeMartini, which is he says grand organized design.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's really resonated with me because it can mean it's the grand. What is the grand? It's just that is what God is, not a being. It's an essence. It's
It
the
is an
universe.
essence. It's an
Everything.
energy.
It's everything you've said, but it's the grand organized design.
Yeah.
Of that. And so when people say God, I go, oh, I know what that means in my mind, because that's how I've linked it just from having, but yeah.
G-O-D. I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense. But do you know the other thing too, and I think you and I've talked about this before, that I was brought up as a Quaker. And Quakers are brought up with this idea that we all have an inner light within us, and that our experience in life is to recognize that and shine it brightly. And that in order to talk to this grand organized design, we sit in silence. We sit in silence. And so that's how come I've never been one that sits and listens to a preacher or listens to some kind of doctrine, because
so it's your inner calling.
Yeah, it's that inner voice is the voice of your own guidance. That's your connection to source energy, or to the all that is. But it's to acknowledge that you, me, everyone, all of our listeners, we all have access to that.
And so would you say that's intuition?
Intuition is kind of the language of it, yes.
Yeah, with the common, I put my fingers in the air, not going buggy you fingers, quote. Intuition being, because that's what most people call stuff, or they go your gut reaction.
Yep.
You know that.
Yeah, but that's tapping into the messages or the guidance of
the heart, not the head.
Yeah, that's the huge piece, is to listen to your heart, not your head. In fact, I had this conversation with somebody yesterday that our head, our mind, is very useful for doing things like, matching up outfits and creating meals and remembering to show up to an appointment or do it, but it's to do the mundane pieces. It's not to make big decisions or to align with your divinity or to solve your problems even.
You told a story in one of our podcasts, and I just would love you to do the head and the heart again. And it was about a man, and I just love hearing the difference between the head and the heart. And it was about a man who, oh God, I'm so bad at this. About him having a bad experience with his uncle, and then finding out that man wanted to actually invest in his business or something. Can you tell that story again? Because I love that story, and that is back the heart, which is part of your spirituality. So I'd love you just to bring that up.
You're talking about that one that I said about Bill Gates, right?
Yes, that's it. Yep.
Yeah, I thought that's what you meant, because that is a brilliant story. And so the story was told that this guy is told that this person in this room wants to talk to them and about their business or about something, and he looks at this person, and it immediately reminds him of his uncle, who was mean and picked on him and made him feel like he was a loser and was never going to amount to anything. And so he's like, no, absolutely no freaking way am I going to go and talk to this person. And so then the next words out of this person's mouth is, go talk to that person over there. It's Bill Gates. He thinks you've got an amazing new idea and wants to talk to you about this idea. And so in a flash, it's now yes. And off he goes.
The association changes.
Exactly. And so the piece being, and to your point about the head and the heart, is that the head is saying, oh, no, because it's listening to that story of what happened. Whereas when you're just in the present moment and being validated of, this is what's really happening, and you've just been given this amazing opportunity. That's also taking responsibility for your stuff inside. right? Surrendering to, so what did that guy remind you of the uncle, right?
Totally. And I love that story because it really allows you to flick how much your head can control your heart decisions. And if you can make those heart decisions, which I believe is spirituality, because it's your spiritual growth, and it's your goosies, and it's your, you know, the moments when you listen to a piece of music and you just go, oh, and you feel that open heart.
It's a surrender. Yeah. Open heart is a surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of that. So it you know, if people can make more decisions with their heart than their head. Try a little accent with their head. Yeah. As we both touch our heads.
I know. That, just telling it to be quiet.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. If we can make those decisions from our heart, that's where the wisest decisions are. And that's where you're going to do with the most ease, without pain or pleasure. You're just going to move forward. Right. And that to me is the spirituality part, as well as that heart. Open heart.
I completely agree with you. You know, the downfall of this and why it's so important to have these kind of conversations and kind of reflect on that is, I don't know about you, but I wasn't taught that at school.
No.
I wasn't taught to come into my heart and say, how did that make me feel? Or what's more expansive here? Because that's the piece, is our heart. That's all there is love, in essence. That's when you peel everything back, like you were just saying about the goosebumps and the relaxing into the blissful beauty of something. That's all love coming from your heart.
And that's the difference. And you know, like, well, I mean, going back to schooling, I mean, we were taught to cook. And now at school, you don't get that home economics where you learn to cook or you learn to do a bit of woodwork or all that. You know, you don't get that unless you do a special class. But I know in Australia, they're doing a lot of meditating. Some of the preschools, you know, one of my close friends, she actually has an amazing preschool that she's branching out bigger, and they do meditating, and they do those types of things, and it's implemented into one of the Melbourne girls' schools, private schools. You know, and they're just really, and that to me is inspiring, that they just sit down. I read something on Facebook recently, and it was children with a piece of paper, and they lay on their back, and they had it on their chest, and they just watched it when they breathe. They watched it go up and down.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I thought, how cool is that you start your day with that and you end your day with that? And I remember thinking, to bring that into a school, there would have been so many people who were just like, well, that's not how we're supposed to be. You know, I wasn't brought up with that world. And if I'd had that back in that day, I suspect my parents would have said the same, because that's not the norm, you know. But I just loved that you start the day with that, you know, that piece of paper on your chest, and you do that breathing. And some of the children had commented that they also, when there's chaos, I label it chaos, when there's something going on at home, chaos, that they actually get that piece of paper out and they lie down and they breathe.
Beautiful.
And that's the key. It's out of that environment that they can go, okay, this is not sitting right with me. What can I do? I know I just need to focus on my breathing. If I have to lie down wherever, take that piece of paper. And like these are kids who are 5. Yeah. And for them to do that, that's so freaking cool.
I love that.
And that to me is part of spirituality as well.
I completely agree.
It's your essence. Yeah, it is your essence. It's your essence of what's in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. But I know my friend who has a preschool in Australia. That's one of the things they do. They do it with the teachers and everything. But I love that they do that at such a young age.
That's beautiful.
Because if we had everybody doing something like that, even just taking 5 minutes to meditate, or whatever you want to call it. If you don't like the word meditate, you know, just 5 minutes to gather yourself, or even 3 minutes.
Just breathe.
Just be.
Yeah. Just be and just breathe.
Yeah.
But you know, I love what you just said, because one of the things that I do is I do EFT tapping, emotion freedom technique tapping. And I know that it's got a lot of awareness thanks to the Ortners, actually, the brother and sister that bring a yearly tapping summit that lots of people do it. So I use it for people with addictions and people with fears, anxieties, phobias, as well as people who have cancer. So
as well as Deborah, who goes into chaos sometimes. Stop. Tap. Where am I tapping? What? I don't want to. Yes,
tap
okay.
here and say this.
No,
the reason I'm bringing that up, though, is because tapping, to me, there's this whole recipe of it, in that you tap here and you say this. You tap on the side of your hand and you say that, and you tap on these different acupressure points. Whenever I teach it to my clients, I ask them to pay attention. Don't tap on anything in particular. Just ask yourself, is there one spot that feels more nurturing, more calming than any of the rest of them? For myself, it's my collarbone points. So the key piece is, and to your point about whenever these children that you're talking about are in chaos, they might go and lie down for a moment and start their breathing with their piece of paper. Well, with what I encourage people to do, and I do this myself, is that if something comes up, if chaos suddenly lands, or there's something that lands in a fear or a story in my head, I would just start tapping on that one point. I don't have to say anything or do anything because I'm right there, right? Yeah. But it's doing the same thing as what you just said about those children, because they've made it part of themselves.
It's like cleaning your teeth. It's a pattern. It's like a routine.
Yeah, it's a routine, but it actually helps you. Do you know, the other part that I'm being reminded of to share here is, many years ago I taught a client tapping, and she was quite funny because she just thought it was so silly. Like, what on earth is this tapping my head going to do? And she kept saying,
what's it going to do to me? Yeah.
Okay, Moira, I'll do this. But she emailed me a couple of days later and she said to me, Moira, I still think this is such a weird technique, but it's reminds me, yes, it's the but, and the but was priceless, because she said, it reminds me that I love myself and that there's another way of being. And I'm like, well, if that's all you're getting from tapping, then my work here is done.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, I've got my goosies, my recties with that one. Yeah.
But, and so that I wanted to share that about, because, you know, one of my spiritual teachers was talking the other day on a recording that I was listening to, and he was talking about people coming and saying to him, oh, I meditate for 3 hours a day. I meditate for 6 hours a day. And I was like, yeah, you don't have to, though.
Yeah.
How about 2 minutes? Can you get there in just 2 minutes? And the truth is, you can't. You can't. When you make your whole practice your meditation, or your connecting to all levels of who you are. That's the other big piece of all this, is recognizing that you're a multidimensional being.
Yeah, I think we don't give ourselves credit enough to stop. Mm-hmm. I know I'm a real mover. Like, when I move, and I move as fast as I possibly can until I just go, right, bedtime. And I'll go to bed, that's it. And then I'll get up and I'll move again. And the word meditating, I've really only started to appreciate that word last year. Mm-hmm. Every time someone goes meditate, I go, ugh, you're going to be one of those people in a white gown with your legs crossed. You know, that's what I visualized.
Fingers like this in a mudra.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And then I went, okay, Deborah, you actually go to the toilet to go away from everybody, clearly. And I go to the toilet and I sit there and I focus on my breathing, and other things as well, but I just take a moment, you know, if I don't take my phone in there, clearly, and I take a moment, and that to me is another pause in my world. Yeah. But last year I started doing a little bit of meditating, and I don't really like the word meditating, because I still have that thought process around. But last year I started a course, and I had to giggle. And one day I was meditating at my computer desk, and my dog was on the back of the couch. Like, there's a couch in it, and he gets to look out. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting there at my computer, and they were like, now shut your eyes and do this. And I'm going, oh, I haven't got time for this shit. You know, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, okay, get present. And then I started getting into it, and I could feel my body sinking into the chair. And then I heard this thump, and I went, and I swore, And of course, from then on, they actually took the mute button when they meditated, because my dog had actually listened to the meditation and he had fallen off the back of the couch.
Oh my goodness.
And he fell off the back of the couch, hit the glass thing. Me, thank goodness he didn't. But he's only a Shih Tzu, so he's a very tiny dog, but he got a hell of a fright. And the reason I'm saying that is because you also have to be aware of where you meditate. So my girlfriend was here the other day and she was lying on the couch, and the dog was at her feet, and I could hear her. I was in the office doing something, and I could hear something talking, and I thought, oh, that's a man's voice, that's odd. And then I looked, and she was lying on her back with the phone, and she was listening to and I thought, oh, she's meditating, that's fine. So I waited till it finished, and then I waited a couple of minutes, and then I went through there, and I looked at my dog, and I honestly thought my dog had passed away. His eyes were open, his belly was barely moving, and I was shaking him, and I was going, Ben, because his name's Ben, 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 Ben. And he was looking me in the eye, straight looking me in the eye, and I was shaking him. And I thought, oh my God, he's died. And so I squeezed him, and then he sort of jolted a bit. And then I realized he was only not even a meter away from her. So he took in her meditation. He was meditating as well. Sweet. Then he was like a stoner dog. He's just completely zenned out. And then I'm like, oh my God, what do I need to do? So we took him for a walk around the block, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night or whatever. Then of course he was flipping alive. But my warning, this is the reason if this is my warning, is when you meditate, be aware of who and what is around you as well. Mm-hmm. She zoned out from everything, and Ben, my dog, zoned out. But of course, like I did not think of the animals picking it up, but it happened, one time where he fell off the back of the couch. So be aware if you're going to listen to a meditation, or instead just if you're going to lie there on your own or and focus on your breathing, that's okay. But if you're going to listen to something, a recording or something, be aware of who's around you and your surroundings, because clearly don't do it while you're driving, because that would be stupid.
Definitely don't do it when you're driving.
But people probably think they can, like it'll help relax them. No, it goes far greater than what you think.
Please don't. It's actually, it used to be something that I would put at the beginning of almost every recording I ever did was, do not listen to this when doing anything that requires full conscious awareness, like driving.
Yeah, because if you don't say that to people go, oh, just listen to that, it'll relax me before I get to my next appointment. No, it's going to zone you flipping right out.
Right.
But yeah, Ben was completely zombified.
But animals love meditation. My cat,
your cat would.
She does. Yes. If she will sometimes walk in on me meditating, and she immediately will come up on my lap and she just drapes herself right across, belly flop on, because I wanted to circle back to what you were saying about you still having a little bit of a thing about meditating and meditation.
Which is interesting, because when you said meditating just before then, I didn't feel it.
Good.
And I thought, okay, carry on.
Well, maybe we've shifted the energy.
You're going to make me tap.
Yeah, I'm going to tap on that. Even though I don't
I'm a 10 on that word, meditating.
But I just thought, well, maybe it's time for you to invite in a different story about it. Like maybe, for me, meditating is plugging in. That's all I'm doing.
Oh, that's a nice way of saying it.
Plugging in.
I like plugging in.
Yeah. And so maybe you could just do that to yourself. Because that, to the point of what I was saying about one of my teachers saying, you don't need to sit and say, well, I need to have a 3-hour meditation practice every day to be working on my enlightenment or my improvement or my transcendence or whatever it is you want to call it. Journey through this experience. You can do it in very short amount of times, but it's about your intention. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. You're intending to plug into that. The other idea that I was thinking of just now was the Albert Einstein. He used to talk about like quantum physics. And he called the universal energy that's all around us, he called it quantum foam. And isn't that interesting?
That's a, yeah.
And so I actually always like that, because when you do that, have you ever played with that idea of the energy ball? You just put you kind of bounce your hands, and it's like, I've always had that sense of, there's foam. Like there's foam in between my hands when I bounce them like this.
I like the foam.
Yeah. And so
That
that whole
sounds fun.
idea of, isn't that interesting idea that you're plugging in because you're leaning into that sense of quantum foam to let it flow even better? How can I be a good conduit of this flowing energy that's swirling and flowing all the time? I don't want to be a block to it.
Yeah, you can just pass through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that.
And so that's the other part of it. So that's why I'm saying is that everything is a spiritual practice. And should we choose to language it that way, it gives us more of a sense of meaning.
Yeah, it is, and it's your purpose.
Yes,
it's your purpose and your core and what's in you. Coming from a business brain, when people used to say spirituality, I would struggle with saying business and spirituality are the same, very similar, because I would say my business, I say spirituality is about appreciating your vision and mission with an open heart.
Yeah.
And so your vision and mission may be a business, like mine's clearly a business, but it's actually having an open heart. Yeah, as in yours. Somebody will build, Apple, they're actually doing their vision and mission as well, because that's providing us. But business to me is about providing a service.
That's right.
To the world. Yeah. So Apple or Bill, any of that stuff, whatever they're doing, that's that vision and mission with an open heart, and that's your spiritual growth, your journey, what taps you in, to whatever your core is, and it can change at any time. Don't think just because you're doing this, that the goalposts don't change.
Yeah.
Do you know
the other thing that I'm thinking of as you're describing that is that, have you heard this idea of the shifting to what's called 5D reality? We're moving from 3D to 5D. You know what I mean by that? No. There's some circles talk about that, about 3D. 3D reality is like being very, very aware of our 3D-ness, right? That's the solid physical form that we all are. But as we consciously shift and develop and keep getting better and more clear on who we are at the core, we are beacons of light, we are beings of light, we are souls having this experience, this spiritual experience. So as we keep doing that, and when I'm talking about 3D and 4D, these are dimensions, but they also relate to the chakra system.
Okay.
So if you think at 3D, which is the solar plexus chakra, which is very much about my identity. Who am I? Who am I being? And so that's very much about service to me. It's all about me at 3D reality. Whereas when we go from 3 into 4, 5, more prevalent talking in these circles is 5D, so that's the throat chakra.
Wow.
So we talk throat chakra and heart chakra, 4D. Okay. So as we go up those chakras, when we are operating from our heart and our throat chakras, now you and I have been talking about we want to operate from our heart. But when we're doing that, we are being service to others because we've dealt with the 3D stuff. We don't need to do that anymore. It's safe. We're good.
Yeah.
Now we're here to say, what's my calling? What am I called to speak out and to share and to be of service? So you and I are both very much those type of businesses, right? So I see us, that's what I'm saying, is I see us operating in this 4/5D reality, is that we're following what lights your heart up, and okay, that's what I'm called to share with people or inspire people to follow and do that. So that too is a big piece of spirituality in everyday life, right?
Absolutely. And just when you said that, I actually got a little bit defensive on the not our business, but on the people who are parents, like that's also their calling. So for me, my pregnancy came unexpected, and so even though unexpected, and I didn't want my daughter at that time.
Right.
Clearly, when I found out I was pregnant, but that was also a calling as well, and that's part of that, is to provide her with to the universe,
Yep.
and do the best I can for her as well. So that was another role of being the CEO, being a mother, or being a parent.
And you did a brilliant job, because you've got such a beautiful, successful offspring.
I know, gosh, we all still laugh about that. We'll still laugh. How did me, having been the crazy daughter to my parents, get the centered and poised daughter? Gosh. But that's the other things, having that child is, if you're a parent, and that's all, if that's your full identity, then that's also part of your spiritual calling. But if you have that and you work for somebody, like you may go to work and work 9 till 5. I don't know if people work 9 till 5 now. It's probably more 8 till 6, isn't it? In New Zealand.
Yeah, likely.
Yeah. So even if you go to work, that could be your spiritual calling as well, by going to work and bringing money into the house, or going and providing a service. If you're a telemarketer, answering their phone and talking to people, your spiritual calling there could be just connecting with people. It's not just a business, an entrepreneur business type thing.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's something I've said to people before, is that if you, as a spiritual being, if you get really clear on your calling is to make people feel good about themselves. This is something I've often said, is like, let's say that's what my calling is to make people feel good about themselves, which it actually kind of is. So
which it is.
It doesn't actually matter what I do now. As soon as I get clear on that, that's what I say to people. If that's what it is, I could go and be a Walmart greeter.
Yeah.
And have a kind word, or have a little uplifting exchange.
Perk somebody's day up. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so it's really important. And this is a whole nother, we can maybe have another conversation.
I'm just going to say, can we,
about life purpose? I think we should.
Let's write that one down. Let's add that
we'll
one.
Do that one. Yeah, because the thing is that there's this misconception that it's this big sign, the big sign with the big light shining, and ta-da, here I've arrived. It's like, no, we've actually been living their life purpose the whole time.
Yeah.
Maybe you just didn't get a clear sense of what that is, and then recognize you're doing it regardless of what it is you're doing, whether you're working for a company or right.
And I think, and that alone is really important, because some days I don't talk to clients, and I'm building my business or doing whatever, or I'm being a mum, or being a mum to my dog, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I'll put a Facebook post out there, or a social media post or something. And so that's my way also of giving back to the community, or giving something to somebody. Someone goes, oh gosh, were you tapping into my world today?
Yes.
Were you looking at my living room when I spoke to my husband? And so I'm still providing that service of making people think, stepping up in this world, but I'm doing it in a different way. So it doesn't matter what way, like you say, I'm providing that service of uplifting people and clearing that emotional blocks. But I'm doing it in different ways every way. So even if I don't talk to a client, I'm still, giving people their maximizing
boost.
their performance of whatever they can do.
Yeah, and I can totally relate. I get that kind of feedback too, where I'll do a card of the day, or my letting go guidance system on Facebook Live. That there are so many people that they tap into the energy, and they go, oh my gosh, you totally felt, or that was totally what I needed. Totally felt what was going on for me.
And people go, how did you know? Were you in my living room this morning when I was doing this? How did you know? You heard me? Did you hear me yell at my son? I'm like, no, this is just what I felt. I had to be the post for the day.
Yeah.
But and it is that providing, your spirit, for me, providing a service that's greater than myself.
Yes. And following your heart.
Yeah. Right? Giving with no expectation of a return.
Yeah.
But doing what feels right in my soul, in my heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's totally how that's how I roll too.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yes. But yeah, I just didn't want to discredit the workers.
No, yeah.
You know, the
You're
9 till
absolutely right.
5 or
You're
the 8 till
absolutely right.
6 or
And
the
it
people
like
in
us that and that would to follow through with your point, it's like it's not to say this or this, because we are all doing it and we can all
Yeah.
choose, because even if that a person who is doing I don't know, being a teller at the bank or a cashier at the grocery store, and they may have big dreams of where they would like to be. Well, the job that they're doing right now creates a standard of life to get there. So it's just a step on the path. Or there
And
are
while
other
they're there,
people,
they're learning.
they're learning and they're just being. They can just be with what choices and what's showing up, and make that the spiritual experience of where they are for that chapter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, you're right. And I think that's important, that we're all, on our path of whatever it is, I've got somebody I know who drives like a taxi or Uber,
Mm-hmm.
and she is definitely on her path because she loves to talk. She
Right.
just loves to talk.
Yeah.
So to get her in that role
Yeah.
of taking people in the car, they're trapped. They
She can talk away.
she can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and she can
Right.
answer and talk philosophies, and she can talk fashion, and she can talk money, and she can talk suburbs, where to buy houses. She can talk about freaking anything and everything, and she does.
Yeah.
But to get her in that environment, she's providing that service, because while they're in that car, all their worries are pretty much gone away. They're sitting in that car for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's an education and that sharing of exchange. So even though she may not see she's providing a service to certain things, she's actually providing a greater service of helping the world.
Right. But do you know what's really beautiful is that even if she didn't think that through as to why she was feeling drawn to do that work, she's listening to her heart that says, I like to talk. I like to share wisdom. I like to be of service by this way of being. And so therefore, that's why it resonates with her.
Yeah.
Right? If the person, if let's say that she preferred doing something writing or written word as opposed to that, then she would be drawn to something completely different, and it wouldn't click that way for her.
It's interesting. It's interesting to hear, her say things like, oh, don't want to go do this, don't want to go do this, but actually to know that she's actually providing that service. I had a client last year, and he said, my vision's not big enough. I want to do something grand. I want to go out and do stuff for people. And, I'm just doing this. And I went, whoa, stop. What? Like I was actually floored, because to me, he's a visionary. He sees an idea and he runs with it, and he goes and he charges, and he's a perfectionist, and he does 11 out of 10 for when he hits the wall. If he doesn't reach 11, he gets very frustrated. But for him, I just said, stop and look at all the things you're providing right now, because he was comparing himself to a world leader. I said, stop and look at all the things you're doing right now of providing this service to the world in the way you do. And he said, I'm just still in the ground phase. And I said, well, how many staff do you have? And he's got like 10 staff. Plus he's got another 500 staff that he outsources it for a temp agency. Plus he's got people overseas. And I did get a little bit frustrated, because I actually if I could reach through the phone and slap him, I possibly would have. And I said, okay, so let's just go to every staff member. What have you provided? How long have they been there for? And, some have been there 5 years, some have been there 6 months. And I said, what have you provided that staff member with? Nothing. They just come and do a job. I'm like, don't you dare. So we looked at all the money that he'd given those families, and some have come from, poorer countries where he's he's Australian, he's provided them in Australian dollars, so they've sent them back home, which has allowed people to function, which has allowed people to build homes, which has allowed, you know, them to eat and do those things, which has allowed the parents back home to talk about their children in another country who's on purpose and left their poor country, you know. And we only got through 2 staff members till he broke down and actually went, you're right, I actually am providing a service that's greater than myself already. I didn't stop to see that.
Right. That's beautiful. And so important.
I think that's part of that spirituality as well, is recognizing what you do, but it may not be in the form, you know, that he was comparing himself to a world speaker who travels 362 days of the year. Okay, well, you're being a dick. What do you do that's 362 days of the year? And his was actually 365 days when we looked at it, because I just went straight into the, are you serious? And then went, calm down, Deborah. But we looked at that, and I think that's what we forget, is our spiritual journey is giving to something greater with no expectation of a return, but what feels right. And it's not a happy rah I've done this, I've achieved this. Like with him, I'm not pom rah I've broken him through with my pom-poms and patting myself on the back. It's just it's an open heart that I sit present and poised and love that I can provide that to him in such a short space of time, just like what you do, you know. And what, you know, what we all do is we provide that service, and that's part of our spiritual growth and our breathing in and breathing out.
Exactly.
I think
I love that you shared that too, because, you know, the really important part here, and this is probably another podcast episode, is this whole thing of comparing, because it's actually denying you just being you. So I love that story you just shared, because really what your job in that in the relationship with that client was to actually bring it home, that he is following his path and creating his vision and being of service in the highest and best good. But that propensity to get into our head and say, oh yeah, but I'm not as good as that person, so therefore I'm not measuring up, right? That's when we can get derailed. But when we really step back and say, no, everything in my life is part of this spiritual expression of who I am, doesn't that feel so much calmer and harmonizing and vital to our recognizing that we're following
our core.
Following what's coming through to our core, but also walking to the beat of our own heart. We're going to have to follow that one. Walk to the beat of your own heart.
Yes. Yeah, I just think it's quite funny, because, you know, I talk about self-worth, and I talk about your financial worth. You know, there's your financial, what's in your bank, there's your self-worth of what you rate yourself at, and then there's your other worth, which is what others rate you. And when he said that, I was first like, are you freaking serious? Like, you dork. You know, my whole mind was like, dork, you have had this business for so long and you've provided so many people with the service. But he couldn't see it, and I couldn't, and that floored me again, of how in his world he didn't see, and comparing to somebody grand, but he is just as grand, if not more influential, because, you know, he has a large amount of staff who he pays, and they can do whatever with their money, and families, and the ripple effect from that, you know, it's phenomenal. But I think we only got to 2 staff members when he actually broke down and went, oh, you know, and realized how big it was. And that's, you know, and so that's his spiritual, that is his spiritual calling as well, is to serve others greater than himself, and provide that with no expectations. Well, expectations, they turn up at bloody work. But and I think that's the thing we forget. It's of that we do provide a service, but it may not be the way that we think it, quote, should be.
Exactly. And so this is a beautiful way to wrap this conversation up today, is that that we all owe it to ourselves to take those pauses, to do that inner reflection, to actually recognize I'm not going to listen to the chatter of my mind that's criticizing me or comparing me to something else or some other standard. Where am I? And just pause. Where are you? Because you're on track. You're where you're meant to be. And so then
Plugging
take a deep
in.
breath. Plugging in.
Plugging in.
Plugging into your connection. It's always there. Be open and listen to your heart. Listen to the wisdom of your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that story. Thanks for sharing that. And so before we say goodbye to our dear listeners, we would like you to check back in with yourself on a scale of 0 to 10. Where are you now? Has your energy shifted at all? Has your energy shifted in our conversation?
Oh, me, I'm more inspired to get out there and share.
Good.
I would say, yeah. Just after our talk, I would say that, yes, definitely.
Yeah. So would you say you came, because you were at 3 to begin with, have you come down?
Yeah, I was quite poised.
Yeah.
I would say, I'm not going to say a 0.
Yeah,
because then there's no room for improvement. But I would definitely say no room for improvement. But Miss Perfectionist. But I would definitely say, probably a 1, a 2 or a 1.
That's kind of where I would say I'm
maybe I'm going to say a 1.5.
Okay, we'll sit at 1.5 together.
Because I just feel, I feel like let's get moving for our day. Let's get moving and share more love to others while appreciating myself.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
Okay, my dear, this has been an awesome conversation. We look forward to any questions, or I'd love to hear what other people's take on spirituality as an everyday practice or in their everyday life. That would be wonderful to hear what you have to share with us. So thank you very much for listening. Thanks very much, Deb.
Thank you, Moira. Thank you, listeners.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you next time. Thanks.
See you next time. Bye-bye.